And now, today's guest, Mr. Lenval Logan. So Logan goes by Logan rather than Lenval. He's originally from the United Kingdom, and he spent 20 plus years in the United States Air Force and over 15 years as a government contractor. He was also a member of the US UAP Task Force. He's an active member of MUFON, Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies, and the National Capital Area Skeptics. Logan is an inventor, and he's co-founder of a new startup called Phenom LLC. And I'll let him certainly talk about his app for that company. Welcome, Logan. We're really glad to have you today.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Lenval Logan. I go by the name Logan. As Anna said, I am originally from England. I am from, believe it or not, Nottingham, Sherwood Forest, Robin Hood, all that stuff. And I've been here since the 70s, the late 70s. In my time in the Air Force, I started off as a B-52 crew chief, but I was at K.I. Sawyer as opposed to North Dakota. So I was in Upper Michigan, and I did that for 4 years, and I got frostbite for 3 years and said I needed a change. Yeah, frostbite doesn't look good on anybody, but it especially doesn't look good on a black person. But we'll talk about that another time. From my time as a crew chief, I cross-trained into the intelligence career field because it was inside. And from there, my career kind of took off as an intel analyst. They just saw that I like to try and solve problems, so I flew in the backseat of a lot of different fighters, F-15s, F-16s, testing out equipment. I then switched over to a C-130 called an EC-130, called ABCCC, which stands for the Airborne Battlefield Command and Control Center. And from that, the mission of that particular platform was to support the Army and all ground forces with anything they needed. We would be the ones that would call in B-52s, A-10s, F-16s, anything to support the ground mission, whatever that may be. Could be rescue, it could be direct assault, it could be anything. From there, I ended up on the air staff, and I ended up retiring from the Air Force as tactical director for Mazint products. So I left there. I did a little time working with the FAA, just long enough to learn how it works and how they do things. And then from the FAA, I ended up doing a regular contracting job and did a lot of air defense, aircraft tracking, which kind of got me into this UFO stuff. And I'm here. Now, I will say that I before I did get into the UAP Task Force from 2018 or the tail end of beginning of 2018 till 2022. And from there, I met Jay Stratton, Lou Elizondo, all the big guys, David Grush, all the people that you've probably heard about recently. And I've even been able to get mentored and by Hal Putoff, Dr. Eric Davis, Jacques Vallée. They've talked to me, given me pointers, helping me figure out some things. And now we're coming forward now, and I've just been kind of monitoring things as things are going. So in that trip, lots of different things have happened. So I'll start with the first one. When I was a kid in England, a friend of mine, we'd like to play with softball, and you'd see the laces up on the telephone lines. I don't know if any of you remember those days, but so we were throwing a softball back and forth, and all of a sudden we looked up past the laces, and there was a large triangular object that looked almost like an iron that you would use for your iron when you iron your clothes straight, and the whole bottom was kind of glowing orange red. And that was my first kind of UFO experience. My friend said, "What is it?" I said, "I don't know." I asked him, "What does he think?" He said, "It's got to be a helicopter." And I was like, "I don't hear any noise." And from there, we went in to tell our parents, and they promptly told us to shut up and eat. So that was the end of that, pretty much that experience. Now, on that, I don't know if I want to talk about a bunch of different things. I don't know if any of you have ever seen the TV show Resident Alien. Um, so there's a character that you may not have caught on to, but it's the guy, the Air Force guy that's in the show that's working with the alien as it is. And I had never seen the show, but when I was on the task force, the director of the task force, Jay Stratton, he called me up one day and he said, "Hey, have you seen this new show? It's hilarious." And I was like, "Nope, I haven't seen it." He calls me a couple weeks later, says, "Have you seen it yet?" And I was like, "No, I got a lot of stuff going on." Because you really need to watch it. And then I watched it, and just happened to notice that the Air Force guy was named Lieutenant Logan. And I was like sitting there going, is this fiction following fact, fact following fiction? What's going on here? And he didn't say anything. He just laughed and then said, "Talk to you later," and left me hanging. So I've always thought about that. I was like, maybe there's something else going on there. So what there the reason why I'm kind of talking to you today is just kind of give you some background. So I haven't sat in on any of the congressional meetings because I figured disclosure has already happened. And most people may disagree with me, but if you look in the Webster's dictionary, if you look at what disclosure means, it says to make something secret known. And I think our president, whether you like him or not, and Obama, President Obama, whether you like him or not, they've already done that. They've come forward and said they've had briefings and that they've been told that there's stuff flying around and we don't know what they are. And that's pretty much disclosure. So I think what we're looking for is, if any of you have had an experience, and I have, and other people have, and we're no longer looking for disclosure. I think what we're looking for is confirmation, confirmation that there's something more, confirmation that um, that what we're seeing wasn't a figment of our imagination. Would love to know. I mean, we may not be able to know what the technology is or whatever. It may be too sophisticated, maybe national security, whatever. But if there's technology out there, I think from a unique standpoint, that what if there was technology that could help us cure cancer? What if there's technology there that help us in another medical way or stuff like that? What if it could increase our ability to maybe talk psychically with other people? That's kind of scary because some people just have some bad thoughts going around in their head. But still, there could be multiple things there that we could embrace. And I would hope that soon the effort to come forward and get confirmation is like around the corner from all of us. I know my friend James Fox, the director, he's been talking about it. Uh, you know, Dr. Eric Davis, Dr. Putoff, everybody wants the truth to come out, but we need to know what the truth is. And it could be that the truth is scary. It could be that the truth is something benign and we don't have to worry about it. But regardless, we want to know the truth. So where I'm going with that is that it seems like in the past 10 years, especially since Lou Elizondo came out and let the world know that there was a task force, ATIP or OSAP, whichever one you want to go with, it seems that there's even been more and more sightings around the world. And we don't have the answers to what these things are. We still don't. I mean, when I was on the task force, we saw some very weird things, quite compelling, but at the end of the day, we did not know what they were, so we couldn't put and say that's a UAP. That's not. It was just there were some weird things because I've seen weird things before that turned out from the particular angle that I was at. It turned out to be something quite benign. So you want to be able to check everything, and sometimes I will admit we there was the core group to the UAP task force, and then there were people that were supporting us. And what happened there was there were times that we would send something off to verify what it was, and whoever the so-called expert was, they were out of their minds. They would come back with the most crazy things, and we're like, okay, I'm not this type of an analyst, but are we all on the same sheet of music that this is not what they're saying it is? And we pretty much say yes. Now, a lot of times we've gotten pushback. Different people have gotten pushback, whether in the government, out of the government, whatever the case may be. And we did not know what these forces were. So we ended up calling them antibodies. And if you watch the movie, hopefully you watched it, the movie Age of Disclosure, you'll hear them mention the term antibodies in the movie. Uh, I did do the Age of Disclosure, but my part was not included in the video in the movie, and that's fine. But because the idea was to get the information out to the public on what we think is going on. I did get a chance to work with Tim Gallaudet and a variety of other people from that movie. I was also in the movie The Program. I've been on Joe Rogan talking about this particular effort of trying to figure out what's going on and some of the more unique cases. But the idea is that all these all these things that we're looking at, they all seem to kind of come together. And I don't know if any of you have ever watched Skinwalker Ranch, but my friend Dr. Travis Taylor, he's out there trying to push the effort to really get to the heart of the matter of what's going on Skinwalker Ranch. And my friend Colonel John Alexander, I don't know if you know who this individual is. He was a colonel that was in the military. He's retired. Um, uh, he's an army guy, but back in the day, they were trying to, when they were working with special forces, they were trying to make a super soldier that was not just, you know, all muscles, but could have unique aspects to him, maybe be able to get out of his body and all kinds of other things. And after talking to him, I had a real epiphany. He said when he was out of Skinwalker Ranch, he said, whatever you're looking for out there, he says, look for it all. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, out of Skinwalker Ranch, we saw UAP, we saw cryptids, we saw things that would be considered paranormal. And that kind of leads me into what I was doing with the app. I invented a software called Phenom. You can find it on Apple and Google. It's in its preliminary stages. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. But Phenom is an app to try and capture some of these unique anomalous phenomena that is taking place around the world. If you grab the app, you point it at whatever you're looking at, it takes down not only your GPS, but your bearing, your range, the approximate altitude that you were looking at. It takes in magnetics, audio. We're hoping to put a really poor man's radiation detector in it if the radiation detection system works as promised. But the idea is to be able to capture all of the information that is out there for when someone sees a sighting, so that we can take this information, the real unique outliers, and take them over to academia. That's where uh, Jacques Vallée, Dr. Davis, Dr. Putoff, and many others come in. The idea is to take what we found, and the outliers bring them to them and say, we think we got something special here. We need you guys to take a look at it. So Phenom is the name of the app, and again, you can find that on the Apple Store or on the um, Android shop, and be able to download it from there. Now, we've got some unique things. Every year, I go, well, for the past 4 years, I've been going out to the Oregon Paranormal Show Ghost Conference in Seaside, Oregon. Now, I like to tease people and tell people I'm black. I don't do the woo stuff, but it's the reality is I'm not that crazy about it, but people keep asking me to go. I haven't done any yet. Maybe I'll do something in the new year. But what has happened is, thank you. What has happened is when we were out there, um, the first time I went out there was about 4 years ago. And I got up to speak to tell people that I was working on the app and this is what I wanted to do. And I feel that we do not need the government to figure out what this problem is. I think we need people, and I think we need the right tools. And I'd like to think that even if my tool is not the perfect tool, that it is going to be one of the tools to help us figure out what's going on. While I was there at this conference, I was on the stage telling everybody what I did, worked for the UAP Task Force, things like that. And I had these two older Asian ladies start watching me on the stage. They were watching me so intently. I actually thought my fly might have been down or something like that. I just didn't know what was going on. As soon as I finished talking, they approached me and they said, "Mr. Logan, what do you think these things are?" And I said, "I don't have a good answer for you." And the other lady, who I found out was the first lady's sister, she said, "Show him." She pulled out a picture on her phone of the most beautiful blue orb with a white fringe going around it in a doorway. And I was like, trying to figure out, what is this? Is this like a dust mite or something that they've caught, coming in? And she said, no. She said a few years ago, she said she had it was her birthday. She had a family reunion. Everybody came to tell her a happy birthday, kids, grandkids, everything. And she said she overdid it. So she got tired and decided to lay down for a while. And she started hearing a scratching on the wall. She said that's what it sounded like. It was like either scratching, or she said like electricity loose. And she said all of a sudden, this orb oozed, she used the word oozed through her wall and moved across her bedroom and planted itself in the middle of her doorway. So she screams, all of her kids come, everybody's running, and everybody stops at the doorway. She's on one side in the bedroom, everybody's on the other side in the hallway, and they're watching this orb. And she said she said for about 5 minutes, all it did was this thing was like it was breathing. It would get big and then small again, big and small again. She said the biggest it got to was like maybe like a beach ball. And then it would shrink back down again, but it just kept doing this thing back and forth. And then after about 5 minutes, it just started to move again, and it went directly out of the house the way it came in, right through the wall. And she was looking at me like I was the man, I was the expert to give her all the answers that she needed. And unfortunately, I did not have all the answers because I was just as curious as her. Um, I was so overwhelmed. I went back to my table. I started writing down some notes, started talking to someone else that was there about what she had just told me. And I messed up. The biggest thing I forgot was I should have asked her for a picture of that orb, because she had it right there in her phone. And I've been back every year since to Seaside, Oregon, in the hopes that those two ladies will show up again. And now I can actually get a picture or get a copy of that picture. It hasn't happened yet, but every year I make an announcement. If there's two elderly ladies here from Northern California, please step forward, come see me, and let's talk about that beautiful blue orb that you've seen. Now, something that came to mind that we're trying to find descriptors for whatever these things are. And if it's nuts and bolts, it's nuts and bolts, and we can go with, the saucer shape, the triangular device. There's even rectangular devices, even though I'm wondering, did they just see it from an angle to where it was a triangle? But it really, I mean, it looked like it was a rectangle from their point of view. We don't know. But the things that are weird is just that um, in the orb version of whatever these things are, the UAP version, we've tried to characterize the color. And the only thing that we figured out so far, which is kind of weird, is that the blue ones, it's not that they're dangerous, but if you come in contact with them, you seem to get some kind of cancer in the area that they've touched you. So I'd like to make sure I get that out there. I'm not telling anybody to go run up and touch it and go test out my theory or whatever. Um, uh, what I'm telling you is that of the indication of the information that we've gotten in when I was on the task force, we kind of came to that conclusion. So please understand, the task force itself was never really meant to be public. Okay, the task force, the UAP task force, not Arrow, not ATIP, not OSAP, but the UAP task force was really there to protect the pilots. We had pilots that were freaking out because they would be doing some unique maneuver and all of a sudden pop out of maneuver and this thing is right there and they could have hit it and nobody was listening to them. And the way this got pushed out was the pilots got smart. They started writing up safety reports. Hey, there's something on the range. Here, there's something on the range, and that's how people like Admiral Gallaudet got involved because they put out a message on the classified system saying, "Hey, does anybody know what these things are?" And nobody responded. That they removed it off the computer, and he still wanted answers. He goes, "Are our guys safe?" And we don't know. We didn't know. We just knew that there's stuff that are popping up at nuclear power plants, um, ranges where some of our most advanced equipment fly, places just all over the place. And we didn't have answers, and we were trying to get answers for the individuals that were there, for the pilots that were flying, and even for the guys on the ground that saw these things flying. We were trying to give them some answers, some clarity, you know, you know, every manner of question that you can think of would come up. If you've seen one of these things, you're sitting there trying to figure out how. Uh, I go back to the story that I told you when I was a kid about this thing that looked like an iron. When we were there, it was just staying there in the air. It wasn't moving. There was no noise. It was off in the distance. I was in Nottingham, and it was off to the west. Um, the the object moved when two RF-4s, or I'm thinking they were RF-4s. They were F-4 Phantom fighters, came streaking across the sky, and as they got close, this thing just took off like a bat out of hell and left them standing. And that's always kind of stuck in my mind. And then when I was in ABCCC, I was stationed there in Tucson, Arizona. I went up to Phoenix, Arizona, and just happened to be coming back on the night that going back to Tucson on the nights that the Phoenix lights came by. And I didn't know what was going on. I just saw some people pulling off to the side of the road, and I saw people pointing. I got out, looked. I could see something, not, I saw something black blocked, blocking out the stars. in the distance, looking to the east from the highway going. I think it was Highway 25 going from Phoenix to Tucson. I could see something, but I didn't know what I was seeing. But I thought, this is it. Oh, there's going to be a big announcement that there's UFOs or something. So when nothing came of that, I've been just kind of stomped. I didn't know what was going on. Now, I had a unique situation with James Fox because I don't know if any of you have heard of the Calvine UFO, the one that looks like a diamond in the sky that was seen over Scotland. Um, when I first cross-trained to be an intel guy, my first base was Bitburg, Germany, F-15s, and I'm looking forward to my schnitzel and everything. I was taken off out of Philadelphia, so I bought my cheesesteaks. I was ready. I'm lock and loaded. Let's go to Germany and go see what this new assignment's all about. My first intel assignment. And when we were, I'll take a step back. So James Fox put me into his movie, and then he sent me a text and he said, "Hey Logan, I apologize. I forgot. You haven't seen the whole movie yet." So I'm going to send you an advanced copy of the movie. So he sent me an advanced copy of the movie, and I'm going through it, and we get to the part where they're talking about Calvine and the image, the object that they saw. Well, it just so happened that Calvine picture was taken in August of 1990. I was flying to Germany the first week of January 1990, and I saw that object. I was, it was me and the two guys that were sitting beside me, one behind me and the guy beside me. We were eating my some of the cheesesteaks that I bought, and we were coming down between Iceland and Scotland, and we were closer to Scotland. And as we were coming down, the sun was just coming up, and I just happened to look out the window, and there was this diamond shaped thing zigzagging in and out of the clouds. I can't describe it any other way. It was it was depending on the clouds how they hit it with the sun coming up. It looked kind of grayish and then it looked kind of blackish, but it was zigzagging and it was going. It wasn't going in a circle. It would go into a cloud and then come out on a different vector. So think you're traveling in a straight line, and as you go into the cloud, you turn, 40 degrees, and then go into another cloud, and then you turn 30 degrees and pop out on another angle. And it was doing that, and I asked the guys, I said, "Hey guys, what is that? What is that?" And they said, "We don't know." And then all of a sudden, I was like, "Oh my God, I can't say anything. This is probably it's got to be ours, and this is probably one of the cool things I'm gonna get read into when I get to my cool base in Bitburg, Germany." And so this thing disappeared as the sun came up. I get to my base and I wait a few days. They checking my clearance and everything, and I'm like, okay. I go to my weapons and tactics officer, and I'm like, "So what's that crazy thing out there? Because got to know what's going on." And they're looking at me like I'm an idiot. I'm telling them everything that they're doing, and the colonel that's there, he's like, I don't know what you saw, Logan, but that's not anything we have." And I was like, "But I saw it, and there was people with me, and nope." So until till James Fox brought it up, I I had nothing, you know. And now I'm getting to Germany at the end of the Belgian wave. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that, but I'm getting there at the end of the Belgian wave. I didn't even know that there was the Belgian wave. But while I was there, and went to Desert Storm, came back. A few, like maybe 6, 7 months later, a British AWACS aircraft, the large aircraft with the big dish on board. There's several countries have them, including us, NATO, and England and Russia and a bunch of other countries have them. They flew in and they looked at me and they were like, "Hey, whoa, you're not American. You're one of us." And I was like, "Yeah." And so we started talking, and it was like, "Why don't you come fly with us?" So I run back to my boss and said, "Hey, boss, hey, do you mind if I fly?" He goes, "You got a flight suit?" I said, "Yeah, I was a B-52 crew chief. I flew and whatever." He's, "Go for it." So I get on the NATO AWACS and we're flying, doing orbits over Germany. And so this is my only time I get to ask, "Hey, what's that thing out there?" And they're looking at me and they go, "What thing?" And I said, that thing out there." And they look at me, and then finally, one of the technicians, he looks at another guy and says, "Show him." So I'm looking at something that's like an air picture with aircraft flying all over Germany, and we're the center of the universe. And at one point, you see an aircraft go flying through the center, and I'm like, "Yeah, who's that?" And he goes, "Oh, you know." I was like, "No, I don't." He goes, "Come on, Logan, you know." I said, "No, I don't." And they said, "Well, that's a tape of your SR-71 going through the air picture." And I was like, "Well, that's not him." And they're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "My guy did the ziggy zaggy thing. He's all over the place." And then they look at each other again. He goes, "Show him." And they grabbed something else, put it in, and sure enough, there's an object in the airspace, and it is zigzagging all over the sky. And I was so excited. I actually said, "Who's that MF right there? Who's that guy right there? Who's it? Talk to me." And again, the guy goes, "You know." I was like, "Look, dude, let's not go through that again. Who the hell is this guy?" And finally, they admitted they did not know who he was. They said whenever he was up and whenever they saw him, they would launch fighters, and he would leave them in the dust and show up somewhere else. And then they would vector their aircraft towards him again, and he would go somewhere else. And he never came up on the radio. They never knew who he was. And I'm like, so I don't know how you guys do your business, but I mean, how many people in your unit know about this guy? And they said the whole squadron knows about him, but nobody talks about him because if you talk about him, you lose your job. And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, nobody talks about him." I was like, "So your whole squadron knows about this thing that's out there?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I said, "Maybe I'm stupid, but I'm gonna throw something at you here." And I said, "You're AWACS, so you see everything." And he goes, "Yes." And I said, "And there's a bunch of other AWACS out there. Israel, Japan, Russia, US, NATO, whatever." And he goes, "Yes." I said, "Would it be presumptuous of me to assume that all of you guys are seeing this guy or something like it playing around?" And he just kind of gave me that look like, "Let's not even go there." You know? So I learned to just, okay, it is what it is. And there's something out there and we don't know and nobody wants to talk about it. So now we come forward, and right around the time that Lou Elizondo came out with his story, and I was doing something that was special, and I approached him and I said, "Do you really believe all the stuff that you're talking about?" And he goes, "Oh yeah." I said, if you're all that, you know, if you got those kind of cojones, show up in my office and let's talk." And I just, because where I was classified, I just wanted to see if he could get through the door. And lo and behold, Lou Elizondo, Chris Mellon, and Jay Stratton showed up in my office, and I'm like, "Oh crap, I've just stepped in it now. I don't know what's gonna happen." And we talked. They explained what they were trying to do. Um, they showed me some things, and I pointed out. I said, "I believe that's fake. I believe that's real. Fake, real, whatever." And they were like, "Oh." And they said, "Why do you think that one was real?" And I said, "Because there's another place where this was seen, not even associated with this particular object." And they were like, "Okay." So then after our meeting, they were leaving, and all of a sudden, Jay Stratton said something to Lou, and Lou turned back around and said, "You're in." And I was like, "In what?" And he goes, "You'll see." And next thing you know, I'm now part of the UAP Task Force, looking at all these crazy things. I was pretty much kind of like a Fox Mulder at the weird desk where people would call and go, "Hey, can you check this out? We just sent you a video. Hey, there's a live mission going on here. Can you take a look at this? Can you take a look at that?" And I would, and it was kind of crazy. I even asked one day I got a phone call. I was like, "Yes, who is this?" And there was a guy on there, and he says, "My name is Major David Grush." And he says, I heard you're running the weird desk, and I want in." And I'm like, uh, "Okay." So I pretty much told him the same thing I told Lou. If you can get through my door, then we could talk, because I didn't know who the hell he was. Sure enough, a couple weeks later, there comes Major Grush coming in, wanted to say hi. And he said, "Okay, let's talk about this stuff." So we have a really good talk. And I said, "Look, this is above my pay grade. I don't know what the hell's going on. Let me introduce you to the people that brought me in." And that was it. David Grush was in. And we hung out a couple times, but it wasn't like smart guy, knows his stuff, has a memory like a steel trap. He's one of those guys that I would say has a photogenic memory. And he knows his stuff. So next thing you know, I am hearing about him going to Congress and all that other stuff. So that's pretty much the end of that story. But since then, what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to work with others, um, different groups, MUFON, skeptics groups. Um, my motto is got to collaborate to graduate. We got to work together, because I really feel that we, the individuals, um, we the public, I think we can do a better job than the government. And the government's not really very talkative. I have a thing where I said Phenom, the app, is for the skeptics, the believers, and the in-betweeners. All right. We got to find a way. Even if you don't believe, you're going to see stuff out there that you're going to think, okay, that's not right. That's what the app is there for. You don't have to believe. You just have to collect the data and let us do the work on it. We'll figure out if it's an airplane or satellite or something else, or if it's just something that we just don't know. But that makes it more important. I don't. Lou Elizondo has talked about people that think, "Oh, this is about demonology and whatever." Maybe it is, but, and I do say but, I'm not one that if it is something bad, such as demons, we don't bury our head in the sand. We find our way, we figure out a way to beat it. And that means collecting data on it, not just saying, "Oh, well, go this way because it's over there." Now, granted, I laugh and I joke and stuff because I have a weird British sense of humor, but um, maybe I might say that if it's paranormal and we're going into a scary house. But if it's something that's there, I'm like, we need to document it. We need to find out more about it. We need to find out how it goes up, how it goes down. We need to figure out all the different aspects of this thing so that we can collect more data and maybe bring this data to Congress and help them figure out what it is that's going on. Because if it really is some secret program and Congress isn't aware, I'm not into the politics and all that other stuff. But as an intel analyst that has been seeing things for years, the biggest part of this for me is this a friend or if this is a foe? If it's a foe and they're doing all the things that they're doing now, God help us. But if it's a friend, and I hope it is, I'm looking forward to that interaction, to seeing what we can find out, especially from a medical perspective, longevity, or what if they've been to the dimension that we call ghosts? Could I go back and go call my grandmother up and say, hey, you know, where did you leave that $1 million that you promised me? I don't know. But the idea is we've got to look at everything to figure out what's going on. There's other things that I just want to mention real quick. Um, if any of you are going to Sedona, Arizona, there's a thing called the UAP experience, and my friend Colton Lucas is there. He's got the night vision goggles and all that other stuff to walk people around. Where we just did the Brown Mountain Lights. Didn't see anything. Saw some weird stuff. Um, Nothing that we could say specifically was a UFO, but we saw something that looked like me and another person. There was 10 of us. We went there Halloween, this past Halloween. We sat up on top of the mountain, freezing our butts off for 2 nights, and we saw a weird effect that looked like Roman candles or fireworks that came up out of the ground and just kept going up. But out of all 10 people, only 2 of us saw it. So I'm not conclusive as to what we saw. We just saw something weird. Um, but we're going to go back again. And one of the things I'm hoping that to do with the MUFON guys um, is start having more outings to like dark sky parks and to investigate things, show up and just have a party and wait till we see something, see what goes on. Um, there's other places that we want to go. And I've heard that Anna's been out to the Hesselden Lights, and I'm curious about those things too. But the idea is we need to document it, capture all that information, and hopefully get it to the right people so they can help us figure out what's going on. With that, all I'll say is I think the gentleman's already posted where the app is, and hopefully you'll use it, help us collect data. Even if you're not using my app, use somebody else's app. But with that, I'll ask if there's any questions.
Hey, Logan, thank you for that information. In fact, the gentleman that posted that, Fred, he is from Project Hesdalen. So we have a couple of those folks here that are joining us as well. Very
Outstanding.
Very interesting place. I've been there a couple of times and looking forward to going back next year.
I'm hoping to go too and maybe bring my app and some other cameras and stuff. So I may want to talk to your people at one point.
Hi, Fred.
Hi, Fred.
Hi. I have some questions, but I will raise my hand and wait for Anne to tell.
Go for it.
Thank you, Fred.
Hi, Logan. Thank you so much for doing this. I just downloaded your app too, by the way. I was wondering, did you support Lou Elizondo coming forward? And was that a task force decision or his?
He had already come forward when I met him. So I'll take a step back. Couple like 2-3 years before, like 2016. My wife had asked me, she said, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, this is going to sound funny, but I want to figure out what those crazy things are flying in the sky. So when Lou Elizondo came out, she was like, did you see this? And I go, yes. And she goes, she said, if you don't talk to him, you're an idiot. So I took the advice of my spouse. She also told me, being the genius that she is, she said, if you're going to do this app, don't let us go broke doing your app. So don't let us go broke doing your hobby. But Lou had made a decision before. What I found out was internally, they had all said, in order to get this out to the public someone's going to have to step forward. And Lou was the one that stepped forward to say, we got to do this. It's the best thing that we can do. We're going to have to get support from the outside, from Congress, because inside we're coming up against a lot of walls. And this is what we were calling the antibodies. We did not know if they were in government, out government, whatever, but we just kept having little roadblocks pop up, and everybody's looking at each other going, I don't know what's going on, so we're going to have to try and work around it and figure out what's going on. But Lou was the one that volunteered.
Question here in Fargo. Of everything that you've seen, what was the most interesting that you've seen in particular in the task force you're working there?
Okay, I will only mention this because Lou has mentioned it in the unclassified world, and so I can say it because I'm not going to give out any classified. The only reason why I even came forward in the first place was to explain to people what the task force did from an unclassified point of view. Because a lot of people were like, well, you're here for this. No, we were there for the pilots. That's it. But the most interesting thing that I saw, I don't know if you remember, you've heard the story from Commander Fravor talking about this black island that sucked down a torpedo. Have you heard that story, Anna? Okay, so Commander Fravor says there's a friend of his that they would test torpedoes. All right, so they would launch him under the water. They would blow the ballast. The torpedo would fill up with air. The ballast would fill up with air, and the torpedo would come to the top of the water. And then they would come by with a helicopter, hook onto the torpedo, and then they would hoist it back, and then capture all the information inside about effects, water temperature, all that other stuff. And he tells the story that on one particular time that he went and they blew the ballast on the torpedo came, and he's being hoisted down to go connect the torpedoes, and just as he's about to connect the torpedoes, the helicopter lurches. And what was happening was the pilot was looking down, and what he saw was what looked like a large black island coming up out of the water. And it grabbed the torpedo and sucked it down. And they just didn't know what to do, so they're like, yeah, we're just going to say we lost that one. And who are you going to talk to? You're not going to tell anybody that you saw a black island, whatever. So the only thing I can mention at the unclassified level specifically to what I saw, that it's one of those things that make you go, There was a video of something that was out there that was cruising just under the waves. And when we were looking at it, it's kind of odd. It's a circle. It's black. We don't know what it is. Hey, anybody got any ideas what this is? Whatever. But we didn't really understand what it was. It wasn't until it went past an oil rig and this thing was bigger than the oil rig, and that's when we really took notice. We didn't know what the hell we were looking at. And it's probably the most crazy thing I ever seen. It was huge, and all I can think of is when people talk about giant triangle, a football field, 2 football fields, whatever. This was a circle in the water that was just humongous, and it was just cruising. And I think he said, if I remember, it was doing a couple hundred knots in the water. It was cruising. And that's about the weirdest thing that I can say I've ever been privileged to see that's in the open.
We have a follow-up question on where was that?
I can't say where that was.
Okay, how huge is huge?
It was bigger than the oil rig. And you see the size of an oil rig.
Can you tell us?
We don't have too many oil rigs here in Minnesota.
Yeah, that's true. Think of like what was that movie? Deep something another. The thing out in
The Abyss,
yeah, something
Deepwater
like that.
Horizon.
Yeah, yeah, deep. That's the one. Horizon. Think like that, and it was bigger than that.
Okay.
It trust me. When I saw it, I was just thinking it was just something in the water that somebody was playing with, testing, whatever. And I was like, we were like, why, why that, why that shape, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, the camera pulls back, and then you see the other thing, and you're like, holy crap, do you see the size of that thing? And you go down through every checklist that's written, not written, everything you've got to try to put it in context, and then you come back and you go, got nothing. And you're looking at everybody else and you're like, what do you guys have? And they say, we got nothing. And so you just put it away and you go, okay.
So I know that Fred had a question. I don't know if there was anybody before him online.
No, Fred was first.
Okay. If that wasn't okay.
Yep, that's okay. Go ahead, Fred.
Okay. Very interesting with your app. There are some other apps, and it's nice to see that there is one out there. Is it still in development? Is one of the question. But I'm also thinking, I'm reading that you are kind of giving access for people that are scientists. So you do want to give access to developers.
Yeah.
Do you have any organizations that you collaborate with, like SEU or
I collaborate with SCU, Rich Hoffman there. He's awesome. I'm working with Ryan Graves on ASA. Just we're talking. There's some smaller groups.
Come on.
There's some other non-UAP but still related anomalous like some of the Bigfoot guys. And I'm working with one of the paranormal, actually some of them, different paranormal organizations. One out here in Virginia that we have is called CPRI, and I'd have to look it up, the specific meaning of it. But they've been trying to get me to go out on a paranormal hunt with them forever, and I'm like, nah, my skin won't allow it right now. We'll figure it out later. But hopefully that answers that question. As for the developers, we've got several. I've got some developers that were with Project Galileo. I've got several scientists that have come to have called me up and said, "Hey, could we work with you?" And one of the places, because you're in a hotspot out there in Hesselden, we were like, "Hey, at some point, we would like to get out to Hesselden. I know you've got other people out there because I've been watching what's been going on for a while, and there's some other places around the world. I talked to Ross Colhart and Leslie Keene and a bunch of other people about places and things that are going on. And the idea is everything about my app, please understand, it's a labor of love because it's just my money. I am not sponsored by anybody. So, and I'm is trying to make sure that I don't get hit upside the head by my spouse by spending all of our money. So, some of the volunteers have just given me some of their time and coded for me, and other things. It could be one of the things I used to look at I used to look at a lot of emerging technologies. So I have a Rolodex of companies that had some really interesting technologies. And when the platform is more stable and at a specific state, the idea is to reach out to those people because I know some of them are interested in this particular subject and say, okay, what do you have that I can incorporate into this app that can help us work together? And I'm pretty sure I'm going to get some really cool answers.
Just to follow up, the data that we collect in Hesdalen, we try to put out every day in the cloud. And for that reason, I'm also I created this Open ADS, I call it Open Anomaly Detection System Initiative.
Yes.
So I've kind of reached out if other people, other organizations want to keep their data on a cloud, then maybe some of the experience that we have done could be of interest. And for that reason, we've also been invited by the Human Institute for this UAP summit that is in February. So if you don't know about it, then
Is that the
check out.
UAP Detection Summit?
I think so. Yes, yes. So
Yes,
we're going to be
I'm
there,
gonna.
and
I plan to take part in that.
okay, me too.
Yeah. Um. I intend to be Anna's cabana boy and come with her sometime when she comes out to visit you guys and
Yeah.
and hang out because
Yeah.
I think I've been reading about the place for a long time, and I mean my life has come full circle for me to see something when I was a kid and then get invited to the UAP Task Force. That's one thing. To meet all these mentors, if you will, that are going to explain to me things that I didn't understand. To get invited to be in Age of Disclosure, even though I didn't make the cut, but it was like they say in the Oscars, it was just a pleasure to be nominated. Um, so all these things has come together to tell me, I know there's something out there. I don't know what it is. I know that there's some entity, government entity out there. And the other side of this is that I know that there are some people that are known to be communicating with these, the psionics that have just come out, all these other things. The idea, again, let's collaborate to graduate. Let's work together to bring these things forward. And it would be cool if a psionics person came out to Hesselden, and when some of these lights were going by, they tried to communicate and see what happens. So just consider me one of those people that is going to be contacting you sooner or later and saying, sir, permission to come.
That
Hopefully
would
I've
be
answered
nice.
your question.
You have answered. I would like to talk to you later on because I'm also a developer, a web developer. So I could probably also find people that could help on the development of the app.
Would love
Yeah.
it. We're
Mm.
again, it's collaborate to graduate. And one of the things we want to do is, because the app and other apps are going to be out there, the idea is maybe we can tip and queue, and you can tip and queue us, because you can tell us this is the part of the sky to point to. I mean, I'm going to tell a weird story. When I first got to Upper Michigan, I saw the Northern Lights for the first time. I thought it was UFOs. I never saw them before. I freaked out. I was like, sir, there's something going on the runway. There's lights here and whatever. And he's like, yes, son, that's the Northern Lights. Sir, I don't think you understand. They're moving all over the sky. So it's one of those experiences, but it sticks in your head for the rest of your life. What else can I answer for you, Anna?
Nothing from me at the moment. I think I'm freezing up again. We're having a little bit of instability in our internet connection here, unfortunately. But end of September, I believe, Fred, isn't it, when the conference is going to happen?
Yes, every September. I think this time it's actually when the changing between August and September, that weekend, and it's going to be
Where's this
weekend.
meeting going to be at?
Well, first of all, this time we're going to do it so that Americans, Germans, French, and Italians also like to come to Norway. So we're going to spend like a day in Trondheim, which is in the middle of Norway, and it's a beautiful city. And we're going to have the conference there. And then we're going to go down to Hessdalen, have a day in Hessdalen, walk around and see the different places. And then we are ending by going to Røros. And I don't know if Anna actually got to see Røros.
I did.
But that's also a very beautiful place. And my experience from joining the Soul Conference, the Soul Symposium this time in Italy, was that the most important time is actually the time you spend with people. So we actually think that having time to walk around and meet people, talk, eat is kind of the best time.
So I did not make it to this soul meeting because I had to go work, but one of my developers went in my stead, and I think did you have a briefing there?
Um, no, we tried to, and then when we got there, they invited us, but it was in a signal invite,
Okay.
and you open the signal, you have 125 messages. So I
Yes.
lost it. Yes.
Yeah, so it happened. I've been to all the other soul meetings and this one. I at one point I was stationed in Italy, so I was looking forward to going, but the timing wasn't right. I had to go to Hawaii. So hardship as it was, hard as it was to go, I had to make that decision. But I am looking very forward to communicating with you. Anna has my contact information. You can please pass it to Fred. And if there's anything that we can talk about, collaborate on, would love to
Yeah.
see what we can do.
Lovely.
I will connect the two of you.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I know that we have some questions online. Is there any questions right now in Grand Rapids?
Yep, we got one here. Logan, do you think that some of these might be interdimensional phenomena?
Of course, definitely. I think I how do I say this? In talking to people, the way these things are, and even with the story about I was telling you about the Asian ladies coming through the wall, that gives me all indications that this is a dimensional thing. You know, if anybody doesn't really understand the whole concept of dimensions, please read the story on Flatland. Just type in book on Flatland, and there's a book in there talking about creatures that live in one dimension and they experience creatures that live in a higher dimension and the interaction between them. It's really good. It's very thin. It's not even it's about maybe half an inch thick, but it's a very good read.
Nice. So we have one question here in Fargo, and then we'll go to the next person online that's in line online.
Yes, hello. Thank you for your time. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but in some of your analysis or interactions with SCU, do you know if anyone's actually looking at any infrasonic data?
A whole bunch of people are looking at infrasonic and ultrasonic data. Actually, in the app itself, we have a guy who's an expert on infrasonics because he was looking at detecting earthquakes and stuff like that. So that's why we were talking to him. But we've now decided to look at both infrasonics and ultrasonics, and we've got experts that we're going to be talking to that when it is picked up, that we can go talk to them to make sure that if it's something benign or something unusual.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Got a question about sharing data from the app, which is actually was one of my questions too. Is so when these things get reported on the app, are they actually all investigated, or just kind of pick and choose, and then that information that you get from investigating these reports, is it available to the public?
Well, right now it's all the data is shared, all right, and we're building again. Remember, it's all my own money. So we're actually building a back end that people can actually access and see what we've done with the data. As for the investigations, if there's something that really pops out, I'm going to be running over to my MUFON friends or one of the other groups and asking them if they would be willing to do an investigation on this, provide them all the information that I have. We want to have them come over and interview. There's a particular person right now that we're talking to that is actually out in the Midwest, and she's reporting things that look like the moon, but she says she's got a video that shows here's the moon and what's this. Unfortunately, she didn't do it in the app, the video that she said was quite compelling. So the idea is we again collaborate to graduate. In a perfect world, this is how Logan sees everything going on. I would like to see Soul be the outreach people that outreach to every other community out there, including Congress and the government. I would like New Fork to keep doing exactly what they're doing. And I would like MUFON to just be full of investigators that can go around the world and collect all the data. And we all bring it back and compile it. But right now, certain groups are not good at working with each other. Everybody's playing I Got a Secret and stuff like that. So it's going to take us a little time to get there. But the hope is that, you know, if someone calls me and sends me a hit from you know the Northland, I can call you guys and say, hey, Anna, you know, guys, help me out here. Can someone take a look at this? But most of the video that is picked up, that is shot out to everybody right on the app. So there's a part where it shows recent events. Unfortunately, I'll say these two things and then I'll stop. When I first came out with the app, I don't know if I was being cyber attacked, but someone gave my app to a bunch of Africans and told them that they would get money if they used the app. So I had people on the beach cooking and stuff like that. People were calling me and saying, this is all BS. You have nothing here on your. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I called up the people because I've got their emails and everything and their phone numbers, and I'm calling them up and I'm going, hey, what are you doing? And finally someone said, I was told if I use the app, I'll get money. And so I was like, okay. So I had to put a geofence around that area because I mean I was literally getting something like 10 to 15 hits a day all over the west part of Africa. So it's like somebody was deliberately, you know, antibodies, don't know, was trying to stop me. And then we had somebody else break into the app and messed up one of the connections. So the Android side wasn't working, but the iOS side was. And I was like, so I've asked my guys, let's button down the hatches, think security first. And I'm thinking this is going to happen with other people, but it is what it is. But I'm not giving up. We're still going to push and figure out what's going on.
Hey, Logan, another computer programmer here. Curious, have you explored AI at all with your app? Possibilities you could use it for?
We've just started talking about the different AIs out there because we're going to have to figure out how we're going to do all this. We haven't gone too deep down that rabbit hole because, again, things cost money. AI is going to make things a lot cheaper and a lot faster. But again, we're trying to be careful on how we approach it. I've got some really smart people that know how to program and everything. I got guys that are like experts on optics and all that other stuff because we want to make sure that when they use the app, is the app really capturing what we want it to capture? Is it doing something else? And then once the data comes in, we'd like to use AI to do like a first phase analysis and then point us to the unique things that are there. Whether it's what we're viewing from a video perspective, from a regular image perspective, whether it's the acoustics, whether it's the magnetics, and a variety of other things that are going to be coming in the future.
Maybe consider using like a chatbot to interview as a person giving information.
We have, but this version of the app that we have is there's one version that's in Android, there's one in iOS, and we're gonna just pull that together in React Native. And like I said, we're looking at several AIs that we can use to pull together to make this happen. But I like where you're going.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, I know Monty's been patient. Got a couple of them online here real quick. Have you learned about any UAP event that has been hostile and was unprovoked by us?
No, but I gotta explain something. So the way, because we are the government, or I was the government at the time, the stuff that we were allowed to do, we weren't allowed to collect on people in the U.S. Okay, or get the only way we got information was if it was something overseas, and if it was something stateside, it was usually local law enforcement or the FBI bringing it to us. And of the stuff that we received, I did not personally see anything that was dealing with hostility. It was more of um, uh, something entering the room, them seeing a bright light and the lights fluttering or something along those lines, but nothing that showed any type of hostility. Thank God.
Hey, Logan, I had an interview with you on a podcast about, I think it was about 8 months ago, and you talked a little bit about the Cuban anomaly. And
Yes.
you're gonna, yeah. So I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit for the people here, and if there's any update on, when you might be there, and how would you, present that information of your findings.
Okay. I thank you for the question. It's about the Cuban anomaly. So we've heard about the Cuban anomaly for a while, and the question is, I just want to know, binary, is it real? Is it not? And supposedly there was a Linda Moulton Howe did an interview with the people that saw it, and they picked up something, but there was nothing definitive. And I like yes or no. So I plan to put together an excursion to go out, and luckily enough, I had a gentleman come forward and say, if you get the proper coordinates on where we're going to look, and he says, I will get a boat. We'll take some people. We'll go out there, spend 3-4 nights. He says, I'll pay for everything. We'll even get a remote operating vehicle to go after it. So a couple things that came up. After my investigation, I ended up with 3 different locations. So I'm still trying to narrow that down because they were significantly away from each other. I did find one of the people that was originally part of the crew that found it. And as soon as I told her what I was going to do, they ghosted me, which kind of makes me wonder what happened there. So there's 2 reasons why I think they probably ghosted me. Is 1, it's bullshit. Excuse my English. 2, I do know that they took a lot of flack because they suggested that it could be before the Younger Dryas. And all the historians jumped all over them and whatever, and they probably don't even want to go through any of that anymore. So I feel like I'm still back on my own. So we're hoping to, I don't know if you guys know who Beatriz Villarol is, Dr. Beatriz Villarol, and Dennis Hansberg. Dennis is the one that found the Baltic anomaly. And he and Beatrice, friends of mine, they're now working in the same office. So I told Dennis what I was trying to do, and he says, Logan, he says, keep at it, don't give up. But he says, if you start having problems, call me, and maybe we can work something out where I come over there to help you find your anomaly, and we'll go from there. If we do, we're probably gonna raffle out some tickets or something so that people can come with us, so that they can be there if we find it. And if we don't find it, at least they can drink a couple Mai Tais and be there in the Caribbean and relaxing and getting a tan or whatever. Not that I need one. But the idea there is, let's figure it out. If it's there, it's there. And if it is there, the question is, why has nobody been going to do a deeper investigation? And what could that mean? Could it be the government sliding in under the ocean when we can't get there and see what's going on? Because it is too deep for a regular dive. You would need an ROV. So, and if it's not there, then at least we had a good time.
Hi, Logan. I want to thank you, first of all, for your time, for presenting. Great presentation so far. Secondly, kind of two-part. You just mentioned Beatrice. And do you remember around the time, it would be a couple months ago, I suppose, when her and her partner came out and said they had something out in the solar system, hundreds or thousands of these things. And
yes,
overnight, it kind of changed and they kind of recanted. And kind of went in a different direction at that time. The gentleman did, I guess. But around the same time now, this is what has been kind of questioning in my mind. Around that same time, President Trump had called 800 generals to Quantico, all in the same time, all at once, first time ever. And 3I Atlas had kind of been a topic. So I guess my question is, have you any knowledge or anything, or what kind of are you hearing about possibly the generals, and if there's any collaboration or anything to do with the 3I Atlas, or have you heard anything on that? I know Avi Lopez came out, multiple times, but it's kind of, it was a big thing, and now it's kind of just like subsided a little bit. So
that seems to happen a lot. It blows up and then all of a sudden it disappears just as fast as it comes out. But I haven't heard anything from the generals. I have not seen anything impressive yet on 3I Atlas, even though I'm watching very carefully. I'm hearing a lot of people talk, but I'm not seeing a lot of people back it up. And in some of these cases, I'll be quite specific. I think it's the antibodies trying to throw noise out there to confuse everybody. Okay. Again, don't know what they are, who they are, whatever. Just sometimes on a particular subject, there's just so much noise. You're like, what the hell is going on? Where the hell did that come? That ain't even possible. How are they even, that defies the laws of physics, whatever. Now, Dennis, the only thing that with Dennis talking about Beatrice was, I think Beatrice wanted to make sure that everything was vetted through her, the people that have to go through all her information. And I think Dennis was so excited he let it out early because we had talked about this, and I was like, hey, this is really big. And I said, I have a feeling I'm not really fantasizing how big this really is, because there's so many questions. And then next thing you know, Dennis came out and said some things, and then people started speculating as to what he was really getting to. And then he kind of backtracked a little bit. And I think the information is out. It was just that as a scientist, a true scientist, she wanted to make sure her T's are crossed and her I's are dotted, and there was no way they could come back and say, fraud, whatever. You remember like John Mack with his university, and once he went to Zimbabwe, Harvard University was trying to shut him down. So now they have to be on their, P's and Q's to make sure that if they present any type of information out to the public, there's not some skeptic like, Mick West or whatever that's going to come in and, because here's what I see a lot of times, not necessarily Mick West, but what I see is a skeptic will come out. Someone will present a case that has, say, 5 different aspects to it. And some skeptic will come out and hit one thing, and that one thing is supposed to answer everything. And it doesn't. And it leaves a big hole. And now you're like, yeah, but you didn't answer the question. You didn't prove that what she said was wrong or what he said was wrong. All you've done is make it so that we're asking more questions. And maybe that's what they're supposed to do. But I saw nothing that indicated anything with what Dennis was saying to the generals or to 3I Atlas. I'd be very curious if it did, but nothing like that.
I was just wondering, with your inner circle and everything, and it's so quiet. Like he came out on that live, and then like the next day it started recanting and everything. And I thought somebody got to them already, maybe.
No, but like I said, she has been extremely careful, and
Sure.
hopefully next year, early next year, um, I just sent a letter to Joe Rogan asking if he would interview her. And so maybe she can, get down into the weeds and explain everything across the board as to what we're seeing, make it in, like transience 101. What does this really mean? And then she can take it a little further. Um, because I think a lot of people need to hear what she has to say.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, and I enjoy what you're doing, and I enjoy following you. So have a great
All
day.
right, thank you. The Lou, I'll say this while we're waiting. Lou has seen quite a few things. Jay Stratton has seen quite a few things. And the thing is, usually if you've seen one, you end up seeing more than one. Um, I I took everything kind of like as individual cases, so I was never really connecting them. And then after I sat down with my wife and I explained to her all the things that I saw, she goes, that's a lot of stuff. And I was like, really? And she goes, yes, that's a lot of stuff. Not, this all the stuff that's going on. There has to be something to it. And it's like the whole story about UAPs. It's like the best non-kept secret in the world. We all know they're there. We've all seen them do the weird stuff. We know they're real, but yet everybody's like, yeah, that's just your imagination. But once you see one, especially if you have any of the effects, um, you know it, and there's nothing in your mind that can take that away from you. You know it. You may have problems describing it. You may have problems talking about it, but I hate to say it this way. It's kind of like someone who is a victim of a violent crime. You relive it multiple times, and sometimes you will find out that there is a little bit more to what you saw than what you did. There's a case in the Hudson Valley area when the in the 80s when all that stuff was going on, the triangles and everything. There's a unique case there that I read about, and it's where two individuals actually saw each other on the UAP, and they had to be reminded. He was like, "Remember, you were wearing this, you were doing this, and da 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 da." And then all of a sudden, all the memories came back, and she was just. You could see this girl was overwhelmed, you know. But they were on a UAP with multiple other children, and they didn't know. They don't recall what happened to them, but they just knew they were in a room, and there was a bunch of other kids there, and this one boy reached out to, I think, either hold her hand or comfort her or something like that. He knows it happened. It was real. She knows it happened. It was real. But the part that they did not remember initially was that they knew each other. It wasn't until they showed up at the same meeting that they made the connection. There could be lots more of that going on.
Do you have any insight as to why some people might seem more prone to observe certain phenomena when others may not ever had such experiences or make such observations? For example, does it have to do with geographic location or involvement in intelligence, military, or something else?
Some of it may be involved with the military, but I don't think so. I think a lot of the things that are out there, they're generational, and they've been monitoring for a while. And I think the other thing is that's really unique is I don't know, tracker, whatever you want to call it, but I think it's kind of weird that a person can be outside, see something that looks like a star, so from so far away, but he can look at it and know it's coming for him. And then on the other side of the coin, thinking when a UAP is way up there in the sky, their field of view is immense. You know what it's like. You're in an airplane, you look down, you see all of pretty much God's creation sitting there below. But somehow they have the ability to single that one person out of all those other people. And in some cases, track them. Now, slightly different cases versus an individual, but I will tell you, I had a unique thing happen to me when I was still working the task force. I was walking down a hallway and I saw three guys coming towards me. Two were in uniform Navy, one was civilian, and they're looking at me but not looking at me. And finally one of them says, "That's him." And I'm looking at them and I said, "Yeah, can I help you?" And they said, "Are you Logan? Are you the guy looking into the weird stuff?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we'd like to talk to you. So I was like, was going to lunch, but come on, let's go back to my office. We didn't even make it to the office. They dragged me into a broom closet. And they're like, "What the hell is going on?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "We've been seeing these things for 30, 40 years. And now all of a sudden we can talk about it? We were told we couldn't." And the guy was very serious. He's like, "We've had people that have lost their jobs because they were asking too many questions about this." And I was like, well, we got the UAP Task Force. You've got a range filer report that you can file. You can be anonymous if you want to." And, you can see the two younger guys looking at each other going, and finally they were like, "No, we'll take a wait and see approach." But one of the things they told me, and then even Ryan Graves even told me the same thing. They're in Virginia Beach. They go over to the Middle East, and this thing follows them all the way there. They come back, this thing follows them all the way back. So I'm curious. Are they looking for an individual? Monitoring an individual? Is it because the carrier is nuclear powered? What is it? What's so unique that they were willing to kind of go all the way with the ship and then come all the way back? When I look at a case, I'm trying to look at the outlying questions, the questions that people are not going to ask, and trying to put that down to see if maybe something will slip up and somebody will give me the rest of the story so that I can put it together. Because right now, we're just a bunch of people asking a lot more questions than any, and we're not getting the answers that we want. Hopefully that explains a little bit.
Hi, Logan. Thanks for the presentation. It's been very interesting learning some new stuff here today. I have a question. It might be a little woo, I guess. Now, if I understand right, you said that during your time in the service, you're with a group of people, and did I hear that right? Two of you saw something in the sky, and the other guys next to you, like standing next to you, looking at the same spot, did not see it?
Yeah, we've had that multiple times. So this was when we went to. I've had that happen multiple times. So, but the last thing that we did was this past October, when we saw the lights at the Brown Mountain lights. We saw, me and another person, we could see these light things. They weren't solid, but you could see them like fireworks going up. There was like three or four of them going straight up slowly, right? So it wasn't like a regular firework. And so think of a candle being upside down, a Roman candle, all right? So you see the little spark at the bottom, and then there's a gap, and then there's space, and then there's just a long light going straight up, and it's going slowly, and it just goes up until you can't see it anymore. And she and I could clearly see them. And we've got 8 other people with us, and I'm like lining it up so that they can see it. I'm giving them, the arm, say, "Look down my arm. Can you see where I'm looking at as they go up?" And they're like,
So it should be hard to miss, yeah.
right. And they're like, "But we don't see them." And it makes you question what you saw, first of all. There was one other really crazy aspect to this. This particular trip, I'll tell you, one of the people on the trip, she has this really nice Mercedes Benz, and she was planning on driving it to the Brown Mountain Lights. And we told her, I don't think so, because once you start going up that hill, you don't want to get all kinds of damage done to your nice new car. So we laughed about it, and then she got into the four-wheel drive vehicle, and we all drove down together and said, okay, we'll do it that way. So we got down there, picked up some other people, and we went up to the top. Just as we were getting ready to walk out to the area where the Brown Mountain Lights were to be seen, there was a couple, a blonde couple, coming out, and they're walking to a car, and it was the exact same car she had. And she looked and said, I could have brought my car. And we're looking, and I was like, well, I guess you could have made it up here. And she looks and she goes, hey, there's not a speck of dirt on this car. All right. It's okay. It was nothing unusual. But the unusual part was the couple came out, and I said, so did you see the lights? And they said, no, but we're looking. And I said, so you're giving up? And they said, no, we're going to get in the car and warm up. So they got into the car. We went out to the area. We sat out there for 4 hours, freezing our butts off. And finally, one of the guys on the trip says, hey, come on, man, let's call it. It's cold out here. So we're going back. And that couple is just now coming back to go out to the area where you can look out to see the lights. And again, we're just like, wow, that was perfect timing. We're going in, they're coming out. We're coming out, they're going in. So we get to the parking lot, and the guy says, one of the guys, he's actually part of MUFON. He goes, I lost my phone. We're like, what? So we go back, retracing our steps, and we go all the way out to where you see the lights. And that couple is nowhere to be seen. You know, I mean, literally, there's only so much area you can go to, and we're walking around with flashlights looking for his phone, and that couple was nowhere to be seen. So we walk back, we get into the car, and it wasn't until we almost got down to the bottom of the mountain that someone said, "Did anybody notice that couple wasn't there?" And finally, we started talking about it, but it just seems so weird that they weren't there. Anyway, next question. And their car was spotless, by the way. I should think that.
All right, let me read Monty's, then we got one more. I guess a couple more.
Okay.
Please name the event in Seaside, Oregon that you have been to.
It is, let me see. The Oregon Ghost Conference. This year it will be on the 27th through the 29th of March at the Seaside Civic and Convention Center in Seaside, Oregon. So the 27th and the 29th.
Okay. Are you familiar with the TR3B and which agency uses them?
I am familiar with the concept of the TR3B, and I would not have the foggiest idea who runs them or if they're real or whatever.
Okay. And I got another one here. It says, I assume Lou Elizondo has now seen, or I assume Lou Elizondo has now seen the part of Age of Disclosure where Hal Puthoff explains how the UAP could be operating in a way that would make the operator not experience G-forces, etc., in the way that a point in an airplane would. I heard him mention in an interview once that fast-moving objects could not have been operated by humans due to the G-forces, etc., and with Hal Puthoff's explanation, it seems they could actually be operated by humans under certain theoretical circumstances. Okay.
That is 100% right. Before, we just assumed that, it's got to be for them to move at that speed and do a right angle turn or go up and down, whatever. The assumption is that you would be soup on the side of the screen or whatever. If you take into consideration that you have, you're in a gravity bubble and time is moving differently, then what looks as a right angle turn in a fraction of a second would be kind of considered in normal time to you, and it's taking forever. It's just that time moves differently inside the bubble. Um, once Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis came up with that, we all looked at each other because he said, if you think about it this way, everything else makes sense. And it does, if you really listen to the way they describe it, because in some of the cases, like I said, I like to look at the outliers. In some of the cases, there's a point where they talk about a light beam coming from the craft. And the light beam is not an instant on off. It is a slow moving beam. And it's slowly taking like 4 or 5 seconds to leave the aircraft till it reaches the person that it's aimed for. And in some cases, those that have actually been the recipient at the end of the light beam, they said it's like looking down a tunnel. So when Hal came up with this theory about the gravitational effects and everything, when we went down the line of all the things that you would see, the observables that Luke calls them, the 5 observables plus the 6, which is the biological, everything could fit into that theory. The sound, the fast movement, the anti-gravity, all those things, the power source, all those things would now make sense. The only thing that is not making sense is, from our perspective, the amount of power that you would need to do some of those maneuvers. I mean, if you're talking about the Nimitz incidents where the thing comes down from 80,000+ feet and then stops like 50 feet off the deck of the water, right? You have to accelerate up to that speed and then halfway start decelerating to that speed. And it did it in like a fraction of a second. That's a lot of power. And so whatever they're doing, whatever power source they've got, obviously, the way I look at it is this way. I've seen a UAP, I've seen things. So 1, I know they exist. 2, for them to do what they're doing, that means they have a power source. So that means it's something that can be created, built, whatever way you want to look at it, and that these maneuvers can happen. So if you take a look at it from that perspective, everything falls down nice and neatly. It's just, what's the power source? That's the thing that we're trying to figure it out. It's strong enough to take up all the energy that the United States produces in like 2 times the amount or 3 times the amount of power that the whole United States uses, and it's in one vehicle. All right. So that's what we're trying to figure out now, and if we can get some kind of sample, some kind of something, the idea is maybe it will tell us, maybe there's some radiation it leaves behind that's different from the regular radiation that's here on Earth. Maybe it's based on the alloys. We can have an elemental source, we can have an elemental source, but when all the alloys and alloys and derivatives of things that are out there, what's the proper mix to put it together to say, hey, this is it. The way I tried to tell everybody, I said, if you go by what the History Channel says, it says 99% of the animals that existed on the earth before are not here. Think about that. I mean, they had spiders as big as dogs. The most terrifying thing to me is a spider with wings. I don't know about that, but this is what we're talking about. There's so many derivatives. We just haven't found the magic key yet to explain the power and how it's contained and how it's utilized. Or maybe they have, and some other group, the antibodies, know about it and we don't.
So Logan, if you have time, we have another question here in Fargo. I'm not sure how much time you have. I know we've got.
I have plenty of time for you.
Okay.
Whenever you guys are ready, I'm fine. So what's the question?
I'll let him ask.
Okay, I got one more for you. In regards to so like, you know, with all your contacts, let's say. So about 3 months ago, I was watching a live news conference, and it was with the chief scientist of the White House, and
Yes.
he had I don't know if you had seen that, but he had mentioned something about that they now are able to manipulate space and time. He clearly said that.
Yes. You froze up there, but we
Okay, so
go ahead. He locked up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. But for anybody listening, that was a really curious thing because we were like, oh, really? We didn't know about that. And if you could say that in the open and we've got clearances, then what else are you not telling us, you know? So I really can't say what we can do and cannot do. All I know is that he said it, and hopefully he can stick by it. But I'd like to say I'm from Missouri. You got to show me.
Awesome. Okay, you got another one in the chat, and I have one myself too, but let's get to the chat ones. I'm assuming you've heard of the Boogosphere, and do you think or know that if it is legit or not?
Okay, you got to show me. Like I said, I'm from Missouri. I've seen it, pictures of it. I've got friends that have gone down there and have told me that it is real. I have friends that have told me that it's not it's not quite what they say it is. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if you guys are working for the antibodies, but you're giving me too much noise. I got to see it for real. You know, you got to put it in my hand, or at least bring it out in front of me and let me see it do all the things that you're claiming it can do. But we've got a guy that, I mean, in a chat that I have on Signal, and he is like 100% all over it and says it is real. And he's a trustworthy guy, so but I still have my doubts.
We're back here in Fargo at least for another couple minutes, hopefully.
Yeah.
So I'll let him finish asking his question.
Yep.
So I don't even know if you answered it or not because we got cut off. So, but I guess I'll make it short. You were kind of talking about, you know, we're trying to figure out how to, you know, basically bend space and time, and you know, the chief scientist came out and said that. So I thought, well, Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis and everything are big in the government. They have been for many years and everything, and I'm sure that should be some sort of.
Yep, did it again.
There we go again.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Well, they're.
See, I'm going to blame this on the antibodies.
There you go. That works. Does anybody here have any questions before I ask mine?
I don't know how to get back to the gentleman that was trying to talk from Anna's location, but like I said, when people make certain statements like that, you could sit there and look at the CERN facility in France and say, yeah, we were able to manipulate, you know, time and space, but it's so minute that it means nothing. But it all depends on his perspective. I'm assuming this guy's he's cleared for weird and has different clearances than me and whatever. And, you know, but for him to come out there and say that, I'm like, yo, show me something, even on a grander scale than what the CERN facility is talking about, because we're so starved for information on this particular subject that we will hear something like that and run with it. And by the time it comes back around, it's kind of like the whispering in the circle. By the time it comes full circle, it's a totally different story. So, respect the guy for what he said, but prove it.
All right. Awesome. Are you guys good in Fargo now?
Have we been good for the last 2 meetings? No. But yeah, hopefully you addressed his question or heard enough.
I did, and it's just a matter of show me.
Okay.
I've got clearances. Here he comes out and says this in the open, right? And so the people in the classified community don't even know what he's talking about. So we're like, what's he talking about? So if he's really making that kind of a statement, you got to show me. Show us something that is a little bit more than what the CERN facility in France has done. Because when they smack those things together, time and space change. All right, there's changes there. Is he talking about something more fundamental than that, or is he talking something? Hey, we got the stuff. You guys just don't know. But he didn't say all that. He just says, yeah, we have that capability now. And to me, it's bogus. I'm not falling for it. You got to show me. That's the best I can tell you. Take care, Fred.
Discernment is important. And yeah, thanks for joining us, Fred. I will make sure that you and Logan get connected.
So anybody, you had one last question, didn't you?
Yep, I got one last question, burning question. So I watched the Joe Rogan show with you and Jay. Great show.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Charles Hall or know who he is?
Yes.
Okay, so what can you tell me with that? Because I mean, I'm kind of connecting the dots on that, and it just seems like a lot of the talk that we're talking about is all academic when disclosure and confirmation really is right there.
I'm in the same boat as you, because as I try to find out more information, there's not enough out there to change my mind that it's academics here. When I hear all this stuff going on, I mean, even when Jason Sands showed up, we were like, oh, whoa, this is a good doozy, And as we started pulling back the onion layer, we're like, okay, that's verified. Okay, that's verified. Oh, crap, that's verified. Oh, where are we going with this, guys? Because this is getting weird, And we're like, dude, you gotta talk to us and explain to us the left, the right, the this. Obviously there's certain aspects of it I can't talk about, but everything about what Jason initially said points to be true. And now when he goes off and talks about some other things, we're like, none of that has been vetted. None of that has been. We got nothing on that. So, and my thing was, I said to Jason was that secondary stuff that you came up with. He goes, yeah. I said, I've known you for 3 years. You've never brought that stuff up. So where's all this stuff coming from? He's like, I just thought it was initially too much to tell you guys, so I just didn't mention it. But now I'm bringing it up, and I'm like, dude, it puts it. We can vet what you told us before. We can vet what you told us later. So it kind of makes it look like there's two sides here, and which one of is the community going to believe? And the stuff that he came out with after sounds so crazy. You got to sit down and take a good stiff drink.
Sure.
So hopefully I've answered your question. But the Charles stuff, I have, it's nothing there has changed my mind.
You're kind of in the same boat as I am. You believe him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. For those of you who don't know who Charles Hall is, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So hopefully I've answered all your questions, and if I come out to your neck of the woods, I'd like to visit and see you guys. I still got to make a trip to Canada again. The SCU conference next year is going to be in Toronto, Canada, on the 24th and the 26th of July. So that's a new one, because this is the first one they're having out of the U.S., kind of like Seoul. And hopefully we'll have a chance to engage in your community. We'll talk to us, and we'll talk to you, and we'll figure out what's going on.
Right on. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it. You're welcome to stick around. We're going to take a break here for about 10, 15 minutes, then come back. Well, actually, probably be like about a 5-minute break because we got a few things to go through. But
okay. I think
you're
my wife
welcome
is.
to hang out.
I think my wife is waiting for me to eat dinner, but I will. I will say this: I'm very sad. There's no B-52 people there, because I was waiting. Anyway, you guys
when I
have a
heard you're a
wonderful
crew
day.
chief, I was all over it. I crewed Hueys and Cobras, man. So it's all good.
Okay, you guys take care and thank you very much.
Logan,
thanks,
we're
Logan.
back here in Fargo. Thank you so much. I'm sorry for our technical difficulties here, but it was a pleasure.
It's my pleasure. You take care, Anna, and I hope to see you again soon.
I hope so too. And we should go to Hesdalen together. That'll
Here
be
you
fun.
go. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay.
Bye.
Take care.
Cranberry cream soda. Oh, okay. It's actually not too bad. Not bad at all. You're still here. Well, since you've made it to the end of this video, like, subscribe, and all that stuff that helps us out. You know we need all the subscribers we can get, and appreciate you. Thank you. The Exobiology Project. Oh, hey! Merry Christmas from Northland MUFON to y'all. Thanks. You guys have a great year. I'm looking for that golden even. Or is it the pickle I'm supposed to be looking for? Golden even.